So here we are, US Masters Week, really the start of the season. The spring weather's here, sun's out, major championship golf, absolutely glorious. So we're going to give you a little bit of a rundown about the course, the type of shots you're going to need, the players who are in form, look at the conditions that are coming up for this coming week, and then really kind of give a roundup of who we think is going to win this week. So let's look at Augusta, the course. Now we've got a picture of Valderrama behind us, which is the Augusta of Europe. And for very good reasons described that way. You can see around the green, you've got water hazards, but you've also got the way that the greens run off. You've got fairway running up to the greens and off the greens. There isn't that much rough directly around the greens. And that's really a critical part of Augusta. So let's look at the course. Everyone talks about it being a putter's course, and clearly putting at any major championship is really important. Augusta, the greens are very fast, but they're very slopey. Now, yes, your lag putting's got to be good, but that's the case for any tournament week. Why is Augusta not necessarily just a putter's course? Well, take what I just said, the slopes in the greens, the runoffs, the false fronts. Your approach play has to be absolutely on it. When we look at the winners at Augusta, there are a heck of a lot of very, very good iron players. Now, I say this because you've got to leave the ball below the hole. So positioning your approach shot on the greens, and actually maybe not going for a flag and missing in the right place, gives you a better chance of making birdie, let alone birdie par, rather than finish above the hole and you're behind the 8-ball. You're trying to stop three putting. So actually, iron play is really the biggest key, or the approach shot, rather than iron play, is the biggest key to challenging at Augusta. You look at the winners over the years, you've got Faldo, you've got Garcia, players that challenge every year, Rose, Matsuyama, Louis Oosthuizen. They're great iron players, Adam Scott. They're not necessarily the best putters. Tiger, has won multiple times around there, Nicklaus, but actually they're the smartest positioners of their ball in the greens. They're brilliant iron players. That allows them to hole putts because they're being more aggressive at the hole. They're hitting uphill putts. So whilst yes, your putting's got to be very good, your pace control's got to be great, but actually to make birdies, which is really what Augusta's about, to win tournaments, you've got to be in the right position in the green in order to hole putts. That comes before the holding the putts bit. If you're not in position, you're trying to save par rather than make birdies. So the person making the most birdies has a great chance around Augusta. That's an approach shot. Clearly also length helps, and we'll come on to this a little bit later on when we look at the conditions, but a high ball hitter is generally, in the main, nowadays, most likely to win because you're coming in from height, you can control the ball. If you're carrying it a long way, so many of Augusta's key holes, 13, 15, to name two of the par fives. Actually, the fifth, a very long par four, there's a massive false front, and there's water in front of those other two par fives. So flying it in high, long carry, and then stopping power, again, allows you to attack those greens and get close to pins, or at least get over the trouble and give yourself the best chance of making a score. So a long-hitting, high ball player, generally, you're going to see nowadays doing really, really well at Augusta. So not all of us are going to be lucky enough to play Augusta, but if ball flight and shot selection and club selection is of interest, check out this video that we did on the difference between an iron, hybrid and a fairway wood and why one might suit you best. Short game, clearly important to Augusta. No player is going to win round there without having a really good control of their wedges and their short game, particularly chipping around the greens. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the greens run off. And on most of the greens, there's a slope that the ball moves away from the green with. Part of that is they also mow the grass away from the greens. And the grass at Augusta is quite sticky, it's quite grainy. So actually chipping, landing a ball short and running it on has a complication because the ball's going to stick in the grass. So, shots like, when Alathbor won the Masters back in '99, he was long from 15, chipping up the slope to then a downhill green. He's chipping upslope into grain. So it's not as simple as I'll just bumble it up the slope and it'll run out. It's actually going to stick and grab and stop. So your flight, spin control, landing point have to be absolutely spot on. So therefore, someone with a great short game always has a great chance around Augusta because you're going to miss greens, you're going to have to get up and down. So with the slopes on the greens as well, short game control, massively key. So player-wise, now clearly a certain type of player, Augusta is there every year, someone with experience, generally speaking, does really well. And it's normally the player with experience of the course who strategizes who tends to win. Oberg nearly did it last year in his first attempt, but they are few and far between players that win on their first go at Augusta. And why is that? Well, we've talked about the short game side of things, the slopes in the greens. It takes time to get to learn the course and certain pin positions. Now, they tend to go back to regular pin positions on the greens, but again, knowing where the right place to leave it is, where the right place to miss it is, that's something that takes a little bit of time to get used to. Learning the winds. If the wind's in a certain direction, there's a massive elevation change on the course. So how in certain bits of the course the wind swirls and moves around, that takes time, experience, and playing it year after year. It's no surprise that Tiger, Jack, Faldo, all these guys have won, Mickelson, multiple wins around there because they've got so much experience. So experience really, really tells. And I think the players that are playing well, we've seen in recent weeks, the big players are all coming into form. You have to look at Scheffler, second in Houston, McIlroy not far behind, Gary Woodland, someone who's won a US Open, he's played multiple majors at Augusta. Minwoo Lee winning, again, one of the younger guys who's started to play a number of majors, is getting established. You're seeing these players all coming into form. Victor Hovland won again recently, has been out of form. These are all players that have done well around Augusta, have great long games, hit nice high balls, lots of speed, lots of distance, which, again, there's something else we'll look at, which are the weather conditions in a minute, which plays a part. But they all fit that bracket, Matsuyama, of players with great ball striking, high ball flight. Scotty Scheffler, so good at his distance control, particularly with the wedges. Maybe that's why Rory hasn't won that yet so far around there. Brilliant with his long game, but when he gets the accuracy of the short game, is he actually putting the ball in the right places often enough with those wedges to score well and have those uphill putts for birdie? Maybe not. But he's also in form, having won the Players. So we're getting a kind of glut of players that actually this could turn into be an absolute vintage Masters because the right players are all finding form at the right time. So what are we looking at? We're looking at high ball hitter, great ball striker with their irons, good wedge play, good chipping. Now, granted, you're saying, well, okay, obviously the best players in the world are all going to have those. However, I haven't really mentioned driver. Now, yes, anyone who's going to win a tournament's got to be a good driver of the ball. But it generally, the one shot shape around Augusta, a little bit of for a right-hand player, a little bit of a draw bias player. Again, where are we looking? We're looking at Rory. There's a reason why he's so desired to win round there. I think so many people back him to win round there because his game suits Augusta. If he can just nail down that short game, it could be interesting. So the other aspect that has a big impact on Augusta in particular, and the Open Championship being the other main one, is the weather. Now, when the weather's particularly tricky, that's really when Augusta bears its teeth. When the wind's up and swirly, that's when, with the greens as they are, with the water hazards, that's when we talked about iron ball strikers and great iron players earlier, those are the years they really win. You look at when Garcia won. Garcia, Rose had a playoff. Now, neither are great putters. They're both very, very solid long games, but they're both brilliant iron players. And in those sort of tough conditions, that's when flight control, distance control, someone like a Fleetwood might well have a great chance of coming in and nicking it. Doesn't look like it's going to be the case this year. So we flick through the predicted days here. We've got Thursday the 10th, 24 degrees, sunny, light winds, 6-7 mile an hour winds. That's fairly light. That's about a club and a half in terms of maybe just over a club, around a club in terms of wind. So when we're looking at into wind, you basically double up the miles an hour for yards you're going to lose, and the same downwind you're going to gain carry-wise the same in terms of miles an hour. So 5 miles an hour downwind, you gain 5 yards carry, but you lose 10 yards into. That, for those kind of players, that's a very, very light wind. So Thursday, brilliant scoring day. Someone's going to go low. Friday the 11th, not quite moving day, that's the Saturday, but again, 24 degrees, really kind of mild conditions. A little bit of rain in the afternoon coming in. So that's going to soften the course up. There's a bit more breeze. We're looking at a kind of 9-10 mile an hour breeze. So that's getting up to a couple of clubs. So you may well find, whilst the wet conditions in the afternoon might soften it up, the players out early with maybe a late first day, early second day tee time, look out for those guys to be at the top of the leaderboard because The tougher conditions come at the back end of the day. So if you've got an early, late draw, maybe slightly tougher scoring conditions. Moving into Saturday, temperature very consistent. Now we get rain early in the day. Breeze gets up a little bit earlier in the day, but again, it's still 8 or 9 miles an hour, around about a club and a half, 2 club breeze. But you've got the rain from the back end of the day on Friday into early first half of the day on Saturday, just softening the course down. Granted, Augusta can suck all the moisture out of the green, firm it up as much as they can until play comes on. So they can do that overnight. The moment they start playing, the course is what it is. So then the leaders who are out later get, yes, they get a bit of breeze, but that's pretty constant. But they then get the nice, warm, dry conditions. And then the softness from early in the day. So that, again, that leads to scoring conditions where they're just throwing darts at the pins because it's going to land and stop. It's going to be softened up from the morning. So those at the top of the leaderboard probably going to go out and extend their lead. And then into Sunday, warmer still, 26 degrees, very similar breeze, 8, 9 miles an hour, sun all day. So they may well, depending on what the state of the scoring is, you get someone who's way out in the lead. They have to leave the course scoreable so someone can catch up. If it's tightly bunched, they're going to firm that thing up as much as possible to make the greens hard, fast, firm, and to make it really hard to leave your ball close to the pin. So what does that tell us? We're looking at mild breeze. The draw is going to be really critical. We haven't got that yet, but kind of mid to soft conditions coming into Saturday afternoon. So without the strong breezes, then that long high ball hitter definitely comes to the fore. So taking everything into account, course style and the type of player that tends to do well around there, the players in form, and then looking at the weather and the forecast, I think we've really got to be looking at, say, long hitting, high ball player. The conditions aren't that tough, so it's really someone in form who gives that height to get that drop and stop and really be accurate into the greens. Ultimately, who's in form, who's got that game? Scheffler and McIlroy stand out like a sore thumb. I'd like to throw in Oberg again. He had a great year last year, and I think he's going to be right up there. Wyndham Clark also playing well, suits that kind of course game. But I think ultimately, as a European, I'd like to see Rory get the Grand Slam around there. I think he just seems to be more in control. His putting stroke looks a little bit more fluid. And while Scotty Scheffler is absolutely coming bang into form, his year hasn't been quite as consistent. So I think with Rory winning the Players, having a little bit of a slight kind of lull and then building through that last tournament in Houston, I think it would be great to see him. His game absolutely suits it. The conditions suit it. Fingers crossed from a European point of view, Mr. McIlroy can get over the line.